Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. It's been a minute, everybody. I'm sure people have been crying and distraught and have only been thinking about the fact that Murder in Retrograde has been off, but we're back. We're back, everybody. And we are bringing you the latest in true crime. But first, Jenna, what has been happening with you?
Oh my gosh. Nothing, a lot, everything. That's a real loaded question. We haven't been on here in a month and a half? It's
Yeah.
been a lot, so probably too much to not want to bore people with. But
Yeah, in a month and a half, way too much has happened. So
the
let's jump
the
right
cliffs,
into true
I was
crime.
gonna say the Cliffs Notes, you moved a couple states away. I sent my kid across the country, and now we're like dealing with everyday life while the crazy things just keep coming.
Yeah, fun times.
So
Fun
fun.
times. So, first up, we want to bring you a breaking story currently being investigated in California. Jenna, what have you found out so far? And I know it's still very recent, but what have we found out about this case?
Yeah, so there's not a lot of like really little details, but we have kind of the basic understanding of what happened. And there's this 40-year-old Matthew Taylor Coleman from Santa Barbara, and he has recently just been charged with, and let me just back up, major trigger warnings today. There's kids, animals, all of those things are actually being talked about. So just putting that out there. So he's been charged with murder of his two children. One is 2 years old, the other is 10 months old. And he traveled to Rosarito, and it's right past the border. And basically, told his wife he was going to go camping and kind of just disappeared with his kids into Rosarito.
Right. So they had a plan to go camping as a family. And I don't know where his wife was, but she came home and they were gone, and their Sprinter van was gone. The kids were gone, but the car seats were still there. So she knew he was gone, but she knew that, they were planning on going camping. And so, like, in that situation, Jenna, wouldn't you be like, wait, what's going on? Like, if your husband was gone, like, it would be kind of confusing at first, which is how it seems when she reported it, because she wasn't concerned and said she wasn't concerned about her kids' safety or anything like that. Although, if your kids don't have car seats, how are you not concerned with their safety? I guess everybody is totally different, and these people are definitely different because they recently got into something that has come into all of our lives. Jenna, what is it?
Well, we're not gonna say they because there's not a lot of information about her. I don't think she has. I mean, from what I've seen and read,
Oh,
it doesn't be
friends have been quoted as saying they both got into it.
okay. See, I hadn't seen any of that stuff. So he has admitted to, so I'll say he is admitted to following QAnon conspiracy theories and um, conspiracy theories from the Illuminati, and it's so severely that it's basically what led him down this path of killing his children. And I feel like you will know more about this. I feel like every time I'm like, what is this conspiracy theory? You already know. So I'm gonna leave it to you to explain what it is specifically that he.
Yeah, I've always been obsessed with conspiracy theories. This one has just always made me laugh, so I've
It
never believed
sounds
in it at all.
it sounds so ridiculous that I'm like people. I am shocked that people actually believe in this. I'm
I
shocked.
know. I don't know how it happened, if it was like slow. I don't know about QAnon other than they basically found out who it was. There's a really great HBO documentary about that. And really some dark group of powerful people, like celebrities, politicians, billionaires, who basically run the world. And they also, there's so many variations of this. They're like a lizard eating people, like they supposedly eat babies, and they have serpent DNA, like they're part serpent. So then they kind of throw in some Christianity in there, you know what I
So
mean?
yeah,
And
so what I've understand is that they are lizard people. The people who have this DNA is considered a lizard person, and these are the people that are running our world, essentially.
Yeah. And it's all these people, like for example, Hillary Clinton, Beyonce, like they run the gamut, the people that they, and it's
Allegedly.
typically liberals that they say are these lizard people. It's so absurd. I feel like you don't even have to say allegedly,
I'm
but I
just making
guess you
sure
do.
you're
No,
safe.
I know. You always have to be safe because I guess if people can believe this. So yeah, I think some of it is connected to Pizzagate, which was the idea that Hillary Clinton had an underground, um, dungeon of children for trafficking, and there's no basement in that pizza parlor. I've seen multiple documentaries where they go in there. Anyway, it's really crazy stuff, but it throws in some things that I think grab people. For example, Christianity, and not like in line with it at all, but they'll throw in things to grab Christians' attention, or right wing people, and there's plenty of crazy left wing groups too, but I don't think anybody has amassed as much power as QAnon has, in that I can remember. Can you remember of
Right.
anything like
No, and to
with
your
wild conspiracy theories like
and
this?
and to your point, Matthew, and I don't even know if his Instagram still or his Facebook or whatever is still open, but when we saw it, it was very religious postings, and they obviously had a very Christian belief system. So that makes sense when you say that they like target that kind of mentality. I don't know,
Which is
religion.
so unfortunate because they've interviewed neighbors, friends, and they're both, well, I think he is from Santa Barbara. I know a lot of people from Santa Barbara. It's such a small town. It's such a it's not like a fancy bougie type place, but how do you, it's people there are just um very well-meaning, sweet. It's like a small town feel for people that have never been there, and everyone just seems shocked. Like there's no violence in Matthew's past. There's no arrest record. He's always been very religious. I heard a few people say he was almost too nice, like that fake nice where you're like, "Oh, what's right under the surface?"
Mm,
But people say lots of things when, something crazy happens. You don't know like if they just met that person once, if they're making it up. But from what I've read, like there was a neighbor outside with tears in his eyes, and he said, we were both playing with our kids like a few days ago, and we were talking about how fun it is being a dad. And it's just, it boggles the mind to think of somebody so normal, seemingly normal, with a
mhm.
beautiful family. And he had his own company. It was like a Christian surf camp, or surfing,
It
what
was
do you
a
call it when they
surf
teach them how to
school.
surf? School. uh I can't imagine what would make somebody put their kids without a car seat, take that whole drive, which from Santa Barbara to Rosarito is a
It's like
long time.
5, 6 hour wait, right? Because it's
I would say
4.
like 4.5, 5 hours at
Yeah.
least. And that whole time, and then he checks into a hotel with both of them, leaves, and then comes back with neither.
Yeah, so there's CCTV footage of all of this, and we'll put that stuff on our website so you guys can see it. But yeah, so he checks into a hotel called Hotel City Express, and you can see him with both kids checking in, and he stays for one night or checks in for one night. And we'll get into the timeline in a minute, but at what point, Brittany, does the wife like wave the red flag?
Yeah, so the wife was at this point, I would assume, frantically texting and calling, but not getting any responses or answers. None of her text messages were going through for some reason, but there was nothing wrong with her phone. And the family had planned on going on this camping trip, like I said, and instead he had taken off with the kids. Um, the following day, the wife called the police again, and an officer came to her house to file an official missing persons report. She reported zero arguments or fights or disagreements before he left, and said that he had no plans to leave, but she never felt that her kids were in danger. And It was now August 8th, and the officer used Matthew's Find My iPhone app to attempt to locate him, and it worked. And they had a precise location at about 2:30 p.m. that day. It was his last known location, and it was Rosarito, Mexico. So immediately the case was transferred to the FBI because the border was crossed and it was now a federal crime.
I'm actually highly impressed with how fast things were like moved, because he was,
Yeah.
I mean, arrested very fast. Okay, so at 3 a.m., Matthew's seen leaving the hotel with his kids, and then by 6:30 a.m., he returned to the hotel alone. So allegedly, that's when things go down, and these poor kids were, um, yeah.
Yeah, and just 1 hour later at 7:30 a.m., Mexican authorities receive a report that two lifeless children had been located at the Rancho El Descanso Ranch about 20 miles south of the hotel. The ranch owner called police after a farm worker discovered the two young bodies. He told Mexican officials his dog led him to the crime scene.
And again, this is not easy to talk about, and I don't want anyone to, I mean, this is about small children, and their bodies were covered with dozens. And this is where I have the biggest question mark. It's like you thought all of this thing. Oh, so we didn't even get to it. We were so busy talking about the serpent DNA. So the whole reason was that he thought his wife had the serpent DNA. Thus, he thought he had to kill his children to save the world because
Mm-hmm.
they would turn into monsters essentially. So if that's the case, if you have a heart even and you're looking at your children and you think you're basically putting them out of their misery, I would think someone would do that in a humane-ish manner. I know that that doesn't make sense, but do you know what I mean? And this was
Yes.
so brutal that like I don't it just like doesn't compute. So they were covered with dozens of stab wounds, and allegedly this is all from a spear gun. Like the anyways, you know what, if you know, you know.
A spearfishing gun.
Yeah, and I looked it up because I was like, I had no idea what that was. And when you see it and then you hear how it's just disgusting. It's disgusting. Um, so Matthew checks out of the hotel alone at 9:30 a.m. So what he was doing from 6:30 to 9:30, no one knows yet.
On August 9th, 2021, Coleman attempts to cross back into the United States. And at 1 p.m., according to the criminal complaint, Santa Barbara police informed the FBI the Find My iPhone locator app had located a new pinpoint for Coleman, the San Ysidro port of entry, a land border crossing south of San Diego.
Coleman had arrived at the U.S. Mexican border inspection point alone, and this prompted an FBI agent to contact Mexican authorities to report that two U.S. citizen children were missing. Meanwhile, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers conducted a search of the van, and the criminal complaint said that CBP officer discovered what appeared to be blood on the van's registration paperwork and alerted the FBI.
So he was being messy. And yeah, like you said, picked a really brutal way to do it and believed in these conspiracy theories. And I can't help but I know not everybody that listens to QAnon or all of that stuff is insane or capable of doing something like crazy stuff, but this is like a perfect cover for paranoid schizophrenia. You
Mm,
know, which I've always felt like religion is a perfect cover for that too, because people walk on water, people speak in tongues, people saw visions of things. All of that has always sounded like delusions and auditory hallucination, like all of that stuff. And it's like another way that you could kind of um, it's another way that it's possible Matthew went under the radar and it wasn't seen that maybe he had mental health issues because maybe he was just saying that he had visions from God. And I think a
yeah,
lot of people believe in that. And so that's where the line gets blurry
that's a
between
very
conspiracy
interesting
theories and
point.
mental health
Yeah,
or mental illness.
yeah. I mean, I feel like in order to do something like this, there has to be something. Like I don't
Has to
think
be.
I don't know.
So the Mexican authorities told the FBI that the bodies of two young children were found earlier that morning, and investigators believed the descriptions matched those of Coleman's two children. Shortly thereafter, Coleman confessed to killing his two children. Now, here's at least one thing that the family doesn't have to go through because,
Oh yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will think of Chris Watts when they think of this case.
Hmm.
And there was a whole bunch of rigmarole, which I don't know. Maybe this guy did have an affair and we will find out there's a secret life, but at least he confessed. But still, in the confession, was he trying to get out by reason of insanity? Because he said that he had been enlightened by QAnon, and that's why he killed his children. And like Jenna said, he said he was saving the world. So those are not the words of a sane human being.
Yeah, no. No. So he was Matthew Taylor Coleman was charged with foreign murder of U.S. nationals, a federal charge given by the U.S. prosecutors when an American citizen is killed in another country. And according to federal complaint, Coleman admitted to the brutal killing of his two children in his Miranda interview. So at least that too, like we know that the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that he fessed up, and I'm just so interested of like his state of mind and like what that looked like, and like you say, like did he just come out and say it, and we're gonna have some other, you know, logistical stuff come out later, or is he just doing it because he knows what he did was so I mean, there's so many questions, and this is so new. I mean, literally, he was booked on August 10th. So, I mean, that was 10 days ago, or not
Yeah.
even. So, we're going to have a lot more. We're keeping our eye on this. And I'm just so glad that it's because that was my first question. I was like, is he going to get off or whatever? Is this, you know, is he going to get, my question was, is he going to have trials in Mexico or is it here? And it's no, it's here because it's US citizens. It's a federal crime. So at least, you know, I'm
And
hoping
that's going
he's
to
going to
come up
be
a lot in this case because that's a premeditation. Why did he go to Mexico?
yeah.
And a lot of people are thinking because he figured he could possibly get away with not being extradited back here. Lots of kind of caveats to it not being like saying that it's a botched investigation or something versus something going down in the US.
Yeah.
And so, because why else? Why else would you drive that
Well,
far? If you're
yeah.
saving the world, if you're enlightened, why do you need to go to Mexico?
Yeah, so that they maybe wouldn't be found or they'd be found too late, or you could come up with some cockamamie story of, I mean, we've heard this before, right? Where I was, you know, some crazy person jumped in my car and drove into Mexico and, you know, did this or
Yeah.
that or the other. Who knows? And I think, like you say, it's all gonna come out eventually. And the
I'm already
day,
going down the sorry, I'm already going down the rabbit hole because I've already found out that the farm that he went to, because it wasn't close to the hotel, it was a
right,
Christian
20
farm.
miles. Oh,
Yeah. So it was like a place that people come on missions and they have a ministry. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And that I also read that Abby allegedly was also into the QAnon. And
that
there was
part's interesting to me. I wanna know more about that.
I think it started really slowly and it really ramped up from for him, like
Yeah,
some guys that surfed with him, like your husband, like you chat when you're in the water. So it's like you kind of have a close relationship because you do see them every day if you're surfing every day.
sure.
And they said like it just started, like just occasional and then it was just constant and he became very obsessive and wanted to talk about it with everyone, but who doesn't have a relative that's done that? You wouldn't assume something was seriously wrong.
I mean, yeah, if I hear things like that, my thought is just like, okay, like you drinking the Kool-Aid, but like I would never in a million years be like, oh, they're gonna go murder people because of this. Like, it's
Another
insane.
similar case would be Lori Vallow.
Oh,
Like
yes.
completely covered everything with religion
Hmm?
and being goodness and all of that, and then murdered their children. Like, I can't think of anything worse than infanticide, than killing your child, and then they tie it to religion. It's just so
It's gross. It's
confusing.
totally gross. And so we are gonna know more. So Matthew's being arraigned August 31st. It's actually in a local-ish court. Should I go to court that day? Like, see if I can get some info. But we'll know more. So
Yeah,
stay
I read
tuned.
that he was being held in U.S. Marshal custody, and he had a public defender
Well,
as an attorney.
he's it said he's in LA, downtown LA is where he
Oh,
is.
okay.
Or he made his first court appearance in downtown LA. He's detained, I would imagine, in LA, and then he's scheduled for an arraignment on August 31st. I'm
I
sure he's
wouldn't
gonna.
want to be in the marshal's hands. Those guys are gnarly.
Well, no, I mean, he deserves everything coming to him. So stay tuned
We'll
for
keep you
more
updated.
on that. And it doesn't get any easier. This next case is really difficult also, not as much, but it's also some heavy stuff going on here. Um, this is this, and okay, we all know that I'm not great at pronouncing things, and this has, places and names that are foreign. So forgive me now for anything that
And
comes out of my
Greek,
mouth.
no less. It's
But-
like foreign is one thing, but Greek is
and there's like
especially
30
tough.
letters to a last name, so I'm like, I don't know how to say it. Oh, sorry. So, the next story is from Greece. So it's the story of Babas. Do you know how to do it, or should I attempt?
I'll go for it. Anagnostopoulos.
Oh, good job.
Anagnostopoulos. Babis Anagnostopoulos. I shouldn't have done the last try. Go for
So
it.
he's a 33-year-old helicopter pilot from Greece, and he has recently been in headlines because his 20-year-old wife, Caroline Crouch, was murdered in their Athens home on May 11th. So again, fairly new. I think more will probably come out about this, but there's a pretty good amount of information on this one. He initially claimed that they were victims of a gang burglary, but has since confessed to murder. So, why don't you tell us a
So,
little bit about Carolyn? Carolyn?
yeah.
Carolyn. Caroline.
Caroline. So Caroline
Okay.
was born in Britain but raised on the Greek Isle of Alonissos since the age of 8. And in 2021, she was 20 years old, as we said, and was raised by both parents, a British father and a Filipino mother. It was on the island of Alanis. We can't keep this up. It was on her home island that Caroline went to school, made friends, and where she met Babis, whom she later married. So Babis, good old Babis, Anagnostopoulos, is a 33-year-old Greek helicopter pilot, as we said, and he and Crouch got married in 2018, and their baby daughter was born in June of last year. A friend and neighbor who wished to remain anonymous told the Greek reporter Babis was, quote, a nice guy we were often going out with, end quote. Babis and Caroline lived in the quiet suburb of Glycanera, a place where crime virtually never occurs, which is why it was such a shock when a crime as horrendous and violent as this one happened.
Yeah. So originally, Babis had reported that hooded burglars broke into their home in this, like you said, very quiet, safe neighborhood. And so this obviously caught attention very quickly. He said he had been tied to a chair in order to restrain him. Then they went for his wife, Caroline. Understandably, she ran screaming with their baby, and she went into the attic to hide. And she didn't remain hidden, though, because sadly she was found dead. Even more disturbing and difficult to hear is that her baby was lying right next to her dead body.
Yeah, so the baby's still alive, but
Yeah, the
laying next to
baby
her dead
was
mother.
alive and next to her mom, which is
A
it's
whole
so
other
sad.
level of cruel.
Mhm. 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 Caroline had been beaten and strangled to death by the burglars. Babis reported that these burglars had pressured her to give them information leading to money and jewelry, and they kept threatening the life of the child. And they would scream, "quote Tell us where the money is. We will kill the baby." We begged them. We told them where they to find the money. Babis had said this. The burglars supposedly held guns and threatened to kill the family if they didn't give them what they had asked for. So gives this very detailed story about how he's tied up, what they were saying, what was going on, where she ran, all these things. And
He
he
said, quote, I told them where I had hidden the money so that the torment could end quickly. I heard my wife constantly screaming for help tied to the bed. We both screamed not to hurt us. The baby was crying. My wife was crying as they were searching the house for money and jewelry. Suddenly, they left the room, and then I stopped hearing my wife's voice, he said. The upset father and husband reported that they had made off with $17,800 worth of cash and valuables. So here comes yet another one of the most disturbing parts of the case that Jenna can barely handle. Major
no,
trigger warning, especially animal lovers. The burglars had killed the family's dog to stop it from alerting the neighbors, apparently, and the manner in which it was killed was thoroughly disturbing. The dog was first drowned and then hung by a rope in the house.
and let me just tell you too, it's a puppy. It's a puppy husky. Like, what is that puppy going to do to you other than, granted, like totally off topic, but they are very loud, like they howl and sing and all these things. And maybe, but like
Yeah,
I I so
that's like premeditation,
weird.
though. That's like somebody who has a husky
Yeah.
probably would know that. And so, okay, so this is still Babis's story.
Yeah.
He apparently managed to untie himself a few hours later, called the police just before 6 a.m. on Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. And police at first believed that three men were involved in the crime and were probably acting on word of mouth that the couple had a lot of money in the house because they did. And these individuals are believed to have previous criminal records, and they had left a number of fingerprints and DNA evidence in the house where they remained for some time. So police first focused in on the Georgian national with a criminal record, specifically for violent robberies, who was caught attempting to leave the country shortly after the crime.
What are the
They
chances of
quickly
that? So,
divided.
like that
Yeah,
person,
I know. It's wild. So
if
many
they
turns.
like, and if things could have, like, what if this person who had nothing to do with it would have been, I don't know. That's so
Yeah,
crazy.
thank God for good investigators and good cops because they just kept going and they divided into two teams of officers, one from the homicide and one from the burglary division. And they just went through the tedious work of looking through files of felons, especially those recently released in the area, that sort of thing. And there was also the very important fact that the police had obtained forensic evidence from the clothing of the 20-year-old deceased Caroline and her husband, and in various locations in the house. There was also video footage from security cameras that was combed through by authorities looking for any clues. Police have video footage from security cameras in the area to determine the route that they took and everything. But the perpetrators managed to destroy an external video camera placed outside the couple's home and a baby monitor camera inside the house. So hope was dashed.
Also stated that, quote, one rarely encounters such barbarity in Greece. And we've seen several other ugly murders throughout the years, but this was extremely brutal and violent. The crime rate in Greece is relatively low compared to the rest of Europe. And the first 9 months of 2020, just to give you some context, it dropped compared to the previous year, according to their databases. And in lockdown, this also changed their numbers, and homicides decreased by almost 17%, robberies decreased by 40%, vehicle theft by 26%, and burglaries by 25%.
So yet
So
another red flag of this doesn't sound right.
yeah, it doesn't sit right. I mean, things are going in one direction, and then the most brutal crime by these random people, it doesn't align. And like you said, good. Luckily, there was good detective work going on or investigative work going on. So an entire month had now gone by, and Babis was the grieving widower and was very convincing. And um, there's some interview or not interview, yeah, footage of him you can look up, and we'll try and link up some stuff onto our sources page on our website so you can see. But the Sun has done a fantastic job of covering this, and if you guys just go to their website, they have tons and tons of information on this. But
The first time I saw that video of him, I thought he was convincing. I think, were more on it than I was. You were like, "There's something going on," but I was pretty convinced.
I think when people know that their livelihood's on the line, they'll do their best to be as convincing as possible.
Yeah.
So this is what's crazy. So he not that the whole thing's not crazy. He attends a funeral for Caroline and is pictured consoling Caroline's mother. Police were watching and waiting for the guests to move along, and then that's when they arrested him at the funeral. I mean,
I
can you
can't
imagine?
imagine
No,
her
her mom
mother.
being like consoled, and then the next thing you know, he's being arrested.
Ugh, and
And
there's a photograph of it of of
oh,
him
it's
hugging
bad.
her.
Yeah.
It's like Lacey Peterson when her mom was like totally behind Scott and hugging Scott, and then when you find out, oh man, oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah. So Nikos Rigas, the deputy chairman of the Police Officers Association of Athens, told state TV that Babas had, quote, tried to create a crime scene environment that looked convincing. The dog was killed and his baby was placed next to the body of the murdered mother. Police had found that Babas had suspicious activity on his cell phone at the exact time of the murder, even though he told them he was tied up into a chair. So, yeah, his phone showing one thing and his story is saying another. And people are that freaking dumb that they don't think that, first of all, you're being tracked by every device near you, on you. Like, hello. And this is a case that really is defined by devices, I feel like,
Yeah.
because police also analyzed the data on Caroline's watch, which was like a Fitbit or something like that, and his phone. And between the two, they saw her pulse basically and his movements, and
Wow.
they kind of created a timeline off of that, and showed that he was inconsistent with what things that he was saying. And I mean, not this, but her watch had showed that she was fighting for her life for 10 minutes, and then her
Ugh.
pulse stopped. And he was arrested basically after they had gone through all these devices and saw that his story wasn't adding up.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
similar to Suzanne Morphew in Colorado. They just got her Fitbit data, and they show her or him coming home and running all over the house, and they think it was him chasing her.
I
Like
didn't
crazy
know
stuff going on in that
that.
case.
Okay, we're gonna have to, that's our next one to update. I'm not even caught up. On June 17th, Babas, after 8 hours of being interrogated by police, had finally confessed to smothering Caroline. And the police said he was a, quote, top class actor. Like, so he was even showing them, like, I mean, he was that's a sociopath usually,
Yeah,
right? Like,
they're
so
very
wild.
charming.
And he kept up with this story and the grieving widower and the whole thing. And he had told police that he did what he did to their dog to strengthen his story of these burglars, which is like, how does I don't know. But he admitted that that night they had been arguing from early on, and it was there. It's crazy because there's footage from their, I think it's their baby monitor. There's some sort of camera in their living room facing him on the couch with the baby on him. He's texting, she's in the attic, and they're texting back and forth. And this is when the arguing started. And then at some point she said that she told him to leave, and because she was going to leave him and she was threatening all these things, and that escalated and pushing and all this other stuff. So, um, yeah, he admitted to everything.
Jeez. Caroline's family obviously had big reactions. Her father, David, said he and his wife, Susan, learned of Caroline's May 11th death from neighbors on on the Greek island of Alanasos. Alanasos. I'm just still gonna bother me. She also revealed in her statement how she came to know that Caroline had been murdered after some friends arrived at her house to tell her what had happened. This is Susan,
Yeah,
Caroline's mother. She added, quote, I made some phone calls myself, and that's how I got to know about what happened. Referring to the horrific events that led to Caroline's death, Susan stated, what happened in the house, I don't know, and I don't want to know because it hurts too much. Thank God Lydia is all right, which I'm
the
assuming is
baby.
the
Yeah.
baby. Meanwhile, grieving father David also said he wanted to, quote, blow the head off Caroline's killer husband, and I don't blame him. He's 78 years old, and he revealed that his grief rapidly turned to just intense anger after he found out police had taken Babis from her memorial service to confront him with evidence proving that he was the killer. He said, quote, when I found out later, my one regret was that I hadn't known when he was here, he told The Sun. I would have blown his effing lying head right off his shoulders and willingly taken the consequences. He said, I'll never forget how I felt. It was as if an icy hand had reached inside my chest and gripped my heart. It was the worst day of my life.
So
Oh, that
sad.
feeling. That
Yes.
feeling. I can't imagine.
And just to touch on the baby really quick, and I forget if it's been finalized or not, but the her Caroline's parents have the baby. They've said that there's open like an open door policy with Babis's mother. I forget if his father's are still alive or not, but the mother, but I don't think that she has yet. Um, Honestly, I kind of wanted to leave her story out of it. You know what I mean? I don't want to, the babies, it's like too much.
Yeah.
But she's seems to be, from what they're saying, reporting that she's happy, healthy. I mean, she's an infant. She has no idea that her life has drastically changed.
Hmm.
Um, so this is where things get a little more interesting. So there's speculation that Babas might also have some ties to another crime.
Cops are now probing a possible connection between Babis and a close associate named Stavros Dokiakis. He's 53 and he was found dead recently. He's the owner of a tavern called Kritikos. I don't know. Located in the suburb of Kansa. And he was found dead on Tuesday, June 22nd, facing down with a major head injury in the area of Agios Giannis between Glycanera and Agia Perazevkevi. So I'm assuming those are very close because this is a small island. And I know the island life, everyone knows everyone.
Mhm.
The 53-year-old had been missing since Monday, June 22nd, when he had left his car. They initially believed his death was suicide, but friends asked how it was possible when he had a gunshot wound to the head and chest.
Mhm.
How do
That
you
always,
shoot yourself twice?
this always baffles me when I
How do people?
this comes up on that show Accident Suicide Murder, like this kind of shit. It's like how is that physically possible?
Yeah, there's another one crime that recently happened where a man was stabbed like 20 times and they're saying he was a suicide. Come on.
It was called Bleed
So
Genius.
anyway, it clearly was not a suicide. And he was a neighbor of the couple in Athens, and they were clients at his restaurant chain. So
Wow.
police focus in now on how Babis funded exotic holidays, fancy hotels, motorbikes on an only €3,000 a month salary. Sounds fishy. There
Yeah, I
hasn't
mean,
been any. any
That's
more
not a lot of
information.
money. That's at all. Like to be funding all these things on that small of a salary. And I mean, I don't know if Caroline brought anything in or if she came from anything, but this is a very interesting little sidebar, and we'll see what happens. Again, there's more to this story. With how he's gonna be charged, or I don't know what the public or I don't know what the system is in Greece, or if what the next steps are, but
Yeah.
once we know, you'll know. And if there's any more information with this other crime, possibly, we'll report back.
Yeah, you best believe we are on top of it.
But those are two welcome back to the most heavy topics.
That's what we do.
We just
Somebody's got to do it.
coming in hot. Oh my goodness.
I mean, there's not a lot of true crime podcasts, okay? Like, people are waiting for this content. I don't know why everyone isn't listening to us. We're obviously the best. But anyway, we've missed all of you, all three of you. Just kidding. And we will be back very soon with another episode of Murder in Retrograde. But until then, please subscribe. I always want to say subscribe and save. So subscribe and save. Please follow us on all social media platforms. Request any cases that you would like us to cover on our website, on our YouTube. Just chat with us, why don't you?
Let's just connect.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Be safe.
And
what?
Trust your gut. We'll
Trust
see you
your
next
gut.
time.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye.